This list right here is running my entire content operations, among other things, while I sleep. 5+ Claude Code routines, different schedules, different jobs. One reads competitor videos at 6 a.m. One writes a Friday brief. One refreshes my wiki every Monday night. I didn't touch any of them today, and they run weekly. And they all dump. Some of them dump into Notion, where I can view it across a database or on my phone. And most builders never get here. So let me actually show you this one here. This is an experimental one that I recently created. It's going to run in a few days. I don't know if it's like a smart co-founder or like a partner that's just helping you analyze data. And what I have OpenClaw running on the back end is scraping data every single day. So scraping Reddit for pain points. It's scraping my YouTube for any comments that people may have posted or commented on that I should reply to, because it's just getting overwhelming. Not that I have like this big channel, but it's getting hard to keep track of all this stuff that's happening. So all of that is happening, and it dumps it into a folder and among Notion, but more importantly, it drops it in a folder where Claude Code can access it too. And basically what's happening here is that this cron here is going to be an Opus agent. It's going to look at that folder, all the data for the past few days, and be like, look at all this data, look at all the data across not just this week, but across maybe the last 2 to 4 weeks. Well, think of Opus or think of Obsidian, as like the brain, and that's where everything's getting dumped and processed. And that's what it's doing here. It's crunching all the data and it's saying, Chris, this is what all this means. This is what you should be doing. Pay attention to this trend, do X, Y, and Z. That's what this is. But this is the thing nobody tells you about Claude Routines. And most builders set up one cron, watch it, feel proud, and then add a second one, then a fifth, then everything turns into noise and they quit. They blame the tool, and the tool isn't the problem. They just stopped at level 2. There are 6 levels of Claude Code routines. Each one unlocks something that the level below couldn't do. And by the end of this video, exactly what level you're at and what you're going to build, what you can build next. All right, I'm not necessarily the most pro person with Anthropic's new routines. I've only been doing this for maybe a week or so now, and I've been mainly relying on OpenClaw for a lot of the stuff that, ever since the Anthropic ban, I've been more leaning on Claude Code. So here's the whole ladder in one screen. Level 1 is a single cron. Level 2, the pile of crons. Level 3, crons plus shared memory. Level 4, crons plus synthesis. And then level 5, crons plus delivery. Finally, level 6, self-improvement routines. 2 things to notice before we go in. First is the maturity ladder. It's not a feature list. You don't pick a level and you climb to it because the level below stopped working. Second, the wall most builders hit is between level 2 and level 3. It's not a tool wall, it's a commitment wall. We'll get to that in a minute. And then one more thing, routines are not 24/7 autonomous agents. That's just marketing and pitch. The honest version is that most useful routines are scheduled workflows you still review. The rest of this video will make sense. Starting with level 1, scheduled task. For example, a script runs on a timer. It produces an output. You read the output yourself. No orchestrations, no other crons, no synthesis, just one job firing on schedule. For example, I have something called Scrape Competitors Pi. It runs daily at 6 a.m. It hits YouTube API for a list of channels. It writes the results to a JSON file in an output subfolder, and then done. That's the entire system at this stage. And if you're on level 1, this is what it feels like. You set up a cron, you feel like a wizard. The next morning, the file is there. You open it, you read it. You feel like the operation is real. It is real. It's just small. The self-identification line is this. At level 1, you scheduled one thing. It runs. You read the output. If that's you, you're not behind. You're just at the start of the real ladder. All right. Now let me actually run one of these routines. The weekly brief. Here, run now. If you were to have this scheduled, it will run on its own. You can see that it's going to be scheduled to run in a few days. As of today is the 21st. Let's see how long it's going to take a bit. And the end goal is that it's going to drop something in Notion. It'll give me some insights of what to do. Maybe some potential. Essentially, what it's telling me, this is things that I might consider doing. Whether shipping products, things that are in demand because of subreddits or other data points. And then things that I may want to clone. Potential topics, which I think is pretty cool. And this is OpenClaw collecting data daily, and then across once a week, once it has a lot of new data points, and then it crunches that data among the other data points that it has in the Obsidian vault, and then it just is good to go. Level 2. So here's what level 2 unlocks. You add a second cron, then a third, and then suddenly you're managing outputs from multiple sources, and you start to feel the weight. And the weight is the next level pulling you up. Level 2 is what most builders show off and they quietly quit on. So you see all these different crons doing different things. You have a lot of crons running. They do their job. They produce the output. The problem is the output goes to 5 different places. One writes to a SQL database, one drops to the Discord channel, one updates a Notion page that nobody opens, and one writes a markdown file in a separate folder you forgot about. Each cron works, the system just doesn't. And the honest self-ID at level 2 is this. You can't answer the question, what did my system learn this week? Because the answer lives in 5 different places. You have to open 5 different tabs and see everything yourself just to summarize what you already paid for. And this is exactly where I was before on April. I had OpenClaw, similar to Claude Routines, which it runs on Crons, very similar, but it would dump on a SQL database. It would dump on Notion. It would just dump everywhere. And it would be like Reddit data in one place, X in another, YouTube in a third. And I would ask OpenClaw, how many competitors do we have? Do we track? A simple question, and I would get different answer every single time. I kid you not. The crons just weren't broken, but the architecture was missing. There was just no shared brain. And most people stop here. They feel the chaos. They don't have a name for it. They assume they need a better tool. They don't. So most people stop here. They feel the chaos. You don't have a name for it. They assume they need a better tool. They don't. They need a hub. And I've seen creators share videos, Claude Routines and how it works. And I've watched them. They're pretty interesting. They get hundreds of thousands of views, and they just land at this level. Scheduling the triggers, cron expressions, that's just the surface. The maturity ladder is when nobody walks you up. Nobody walks you to. And we're about to walk it. So before I tell you about level 3, I have to tell you about the silent failure that forced me to build it. You know, I had level 2, multiple crons working great, or so I thought. And what broke in the past was not being able to understand how we would use API keys. If you don't have access to your .env, so they just break. So here was what was happening. Claude Code remote triggers run on a fresh sandbox. There's no .env file in the sandbox. So when my crons tried to call the YouTube API or hit Notion or talk to Anthropic, they couldn't authenticate. They just crash. They didn't error loudly. They just produced an empty output. So the cron technically ran, but the dashboard had, even though the dashboard says success, the file got written, the file that got written was just empty. And I didn't notice for about a week or two. And you can actually see the failures here. If I go here to shorts, you'll see a whole bunch of failures. Or actually one of these, it would just look like this, say completed, but nothing will land in Notion. So the fix was simple. Once I figured it out, it was just to inject my API keys directly into the trigger prompt. Not the best hack, but there was a bash block at the top. And basically, long story short, agent could now authenticate itself because it had the right key. But here's what the fix actually unlocked. The bash block writes the .env file. That's when I started building the hub, and that's level 3. Level 3 is the hub fix. It's just a place where every cron writes to one place, every cron reads from. And how we bypass that is just using a hub. But we use Notion as the middle ground. If data gets dumped there, the next cron can look at that, and that's the whole architecture. Cron-to-cron communication is a myth. They don't talk. They share a hub, and the hub is the architecture. For me, my hub is Notion plus a shared Obsidian folder. Notion is the structure side. Obsidian is a markdown raw side. Both get synced across every device. I own every cron knows where to write. Every cron knows where to read. So the self-ID for level 3 is this. You can open one place and see what every cron produced this week. You don't have to remember which file went where. You don't have to check 5 Discord channels. You just open one tab. You see the week. Now here's the part nobody tells you. Picking the hub is the hard part. It's not a tool problem. It's just a commitment problem. You have to pick Notion or Obsidian or Airtable or a database, and you have to commit to it being the spine. Every cron has to write there, no exceptions. No, I'll just dump it here in this markdown file for now. That's how you slide back into level 2. And that's the commitment most builders stop at level 2. They feel the chaos, but they don't want to pick. So let me actually show you what that looks like. Right? For me, this is my content hub, and this is just how I manage my content. You know, every output that released to content is going to dump here some way or another. And they don't even need to dump here. They need to read from here. So it's important if I tell my OpenClaw, hey, can you quickly check, what did I post last week? And look at the content hub. It'll look at here. If I tell Claude Code, hey, can you update X record in the content hub? It'll look right here. So imagine if we had separate folders stored somewhere, even if they worked. Imagine telling OpenClaw, hey, can you access my folder in a different computer, or having to dump it in Google Drive or something. You just have to create more hurdles. When something like Notion or just Airtable, it doesn't matter. You just got to pick something that's consistent. So the hub for me solved the chaos, but then I had a new problem. Reading the hub became its own job. And level four is when one cron's only job is to make all the other crons useful. And the synthesizer cron is different. This one reads everything the workers produce and writes you an insight. It runs on Opus because the job is a pattern detection, not fetching. And for example, as I showed you earlier, my weekly brief, it reads multiple folders, the pains folder, the intel folder, the attention folder. Each one was a file during the week by smaller crons running on OpenClaw. The brief cron hands off all of the raw to Opus and asks what patterns are showing up and what weren't showing up 2 weeks ago. The output is just one short markdown file, such as this one here. Each pattern has a quote, a count, and a scope. And so the self ID for level 4 is this. You have a cron whose only job is to read other crons' output and tell you what matters. You stop reading the data, you read the brief about the data. This is also the level where money starts mattering. The synthesizer is the only one that runs on Opus. Most of your tokens spent should sit on the synthesizer because that's where the IQ has to be. But here's the trap with synthesis. The brief sits in Notion and I forget to open Notion. The level 5 is where synthesis comes. Level 5 is where synthesis comes to you instead of waiting for you. And the brief sitting in Notion is beautiful, it's synthesized, but it's useless because if I forget to open it, Friday will turn into Saturday, Saturday into Tuesday, and the brief would just sit there. So I added one line to the cron. After it writes to Notion, it fires a Telegram message, same content. My phone buzzes on a Friday at 7 a.m. I read it on the couch or whatever, and no tabs open. It's just an app. It's just a reminder to open my Notion. And the self ID for level 5 is this. It says your phone tells you what your system found while you slept. That's it. That's the whole level. Pick the channel you actually check, Telegram, email, Slack, iMessage, whatever. Just push the synthesis there. And the Notion copy is the archive. The phone copy is the alert. How you can schedule stuff. Now you can actually build your workflows. Now let me back up and answer maybe a question that some people might ask, whether routines or OpenClaw. Pick one. The answer is just don't. Both systems, same hub. I still use them together. It's just not even them fighting with each other. If it's just using them both. For example, OpenClaw scrapes data on multiple cheap models and then dumps them in a shared Obsidian folder. Claude synthesizes that data, and that's another way crons can interact across different systems. For me, OpenClaw scrapes Reddit, YouTube, product hunt websites, multiple cheap models, multiple sources, all running on the schedule, and then all dumps into the same folder. Claude Code is on the right side, and it reads that folder, it synthesizes it, it writes in a brief. Let me actually just show you what all this means. And so this is the Eries Vault. This is essentially what's installed in my Mac Mini, but that's a separate laptop or separate computer, and that's where OpenClaw runs. We see the same folder structure, and it just auto syncs every so often. And this is a raw folder, and where all the data gets dumped by OpenClaw. At some point, Claude Code will see this and have access to the data and just process it. $5 a month is what it would cost you to do this with Obsidian. The folder lives on every device I own, and the cool part is I can access it on my phone as well. And so that is level 3 to level 4 across 2 different orchestration systems. And most creators present these tools as a pick one, and that's the wrong question. The right question is which system is better at which job. OpenClaw is better hands-off, multi-source, multi-model scraping. You set it and forget it. And Claude Routines is better at refinement and quality. You can interact with them. You can refine against them. So for example, I have a Carpathy loop in Claude Code, and I can refine my workflows very easily. And the output is just sharper, in my opinion. If I'm generating scripts or any type of content, Claude Code is just going to run it better. OpenClaw is more hands-off, but the trade-off is that with routines, I can refine better. I can have better content qualities. Handoff means you don't touch it, but the quality plateaus. Or refinable means you have to touch it. So which brings us to this last level, and the one I haven't built yet, and that's the level 6 is the edge. This is where a routine evaluates its own output, scores it, and updates its own instructions to do better next time. So that's essentially the auto search from Carpathy. So essentially what I'm describing is a system that just auto trains and finds a mistake. It just gets better on its own. And the closest thing I have to that is the weekly refresh. If I had to pick one, that runs on Monday at 11 p.m. It rebuilds my index files based on what changed during the week. That's automatic maintenance at best, but it's not self-improvement. The cron isn't self-grading itself. It's just doing the same job with fresh inputs. So the missing piece is the slash refine pattern applied to the cron itself. And right now I use the slash refine interactively. I just run an agent to score again, an eval file, to write a prompt and run it again into a loop as it gets better. So level 6 routine would do that loop on a schedule. So crons runs, evaluator scores the output against the rubric. If the score drops, then the cron will rewrite in its own prompt and try again the next week. Nobody touches it. That self ID for level 6 would be this. Your routine ran 4 times, scored its own output, kept the best version, and updated its own instructions. I don't know anyone shipping this in production yet. If you build it, tell me because I want to see it. And the reason I'm telling you about a level I haven't shipped is because the ladder is incomplete without it. And so levels 1 through 5 are real. Level 6 is the next step. But it might take me a few months or maybe, I don't know, some time to get there. But the point is, I'll let the necessity push me to that level if I need it. If you took one thing from this video, just take this. Don't add another cron. Just pick a hub. If you're a level 1, congratulations, you started. And add one more cron to feel the chaos, and the chaos is the lesson. And if you're a level 2, you don't need a better tool. You just need to commit to one hub, Notion or Obsidian. A SQL database, just pick one that you actually open and make every cron right there. Every cron reads from there. And that's the commitment for the entire jump from level 2 to level 3. And then if you're a level 3, then the move is one synthesis cron, one Opus call that reads everything the workers produce and tells you what matters. Don't add more workers, just add a reader. And finally, if you're level 4, just push it to your phone, Telegram, email, whatever you actually check. And the brief in Notion is just the archive. The brief on your phone is the system. And finally, if you're level 5, you're past most builders. The only level above you is the one nobody shipped yet. And most builders quit at level 2 because they think they need a better cron tool, and they don't. They just need a meeting room for the crons, and the hub is the architecture. All right, so if this was useful, subscribe. I post systems I actually run, not just the ones I theorize about. And at potential future video, I'm going to walk through the exact weekly brief cron once I refine it. But if you want the brief cron first, just links in the description. It has my free newsletter, and that goes out every Tuesday. So that's the ladder. See you on the next one.